My name is Adriana, and in this video essay, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite film directors at this time, Edgar Wright. And no, I'm not going to be talking about his use of whip hands. In this video essay, I'm going to be talking about how Last Night in Soho marks a distinct evolution in Edgar Wright's shot composition, moving beyond his kinetic and comedic style from his previous films, all while still retaining his visual trademarks. When it comes to his shot design, his visual trademarks revolve around dynamic framing and movement. This is often made possible through his whip pans and quick zooms, intricate tracking shots, and for visual comedy, typically things will either enter or leave frame abruptly. As for his clever use of composition, I would say that symmetry, Dutch angles, and frame within a frame are also visual trademarks of him. And it's worth mentioning how at this point in his career, he has turned fast-paced montages, visual comebacks, and visual puns as a trademark of his, to the point that because Last Night in Soho did not have any of these elements, a lot of critics said that this did not feel like an Edgar Wright film. And honestly, I agree. When I found out that Edgar Wright was the director of this film, I was confused but intrigued. And after studying his filmography, I can see some aspects of his other work in Last Night in Soho. There is a lot of dynamic framing and movement that filmgoers have come to expect out of Wright's films. And Last Night in Soho still has those same visual elements, just differently. I lied. I'm going to be talking about his use of whip hands. Sorry, Professor. In this case, his whip hands are used as a horror element, more than a comedic or action one. In Shaun of the Dead, when Shaun is coming up with a plan to save his mom and ex-girlfriend, the whip pans are used to add a seamless transition in the montage, which adds a comedic layer to the information being presented at us. In Baby Driver, it is used to exaggerate the dramatic action that's going on in the heist. And in Last Night in Soho, it is used to amplify the urgent need for Eloise to get out of a dangerous situation. Let's move on to another way that Wright adds dynamic movement in his visual storytelling, tracking shots. Typically, a tracking shot in an Edgar Wright movie is used to establish the character's attitude of the world. By simply following Shaun and Baby walking around town, you can totally see exactly who these type of people are. And in Last Night in Soho, a tracking shot is also used to introduce character. One of the first shots in the film is a tracking shot of Eloise dancing in her room alone. And while the sequence does give the audience information on who the main character is, I would say that it's the production design and the world around her that gives a sense of who the character is and not the tracking shot overall. Now, the tracking shot that I want to talk about that does introduce character through movement is actually one of the best uses of Steadicams I've ever seen in film.
You're already a star. But you could be an old lady before you get on.
Okay, so now that we talked about how the movement of the shots creates a dynamic framing that conveys story and character, let's take a deep dive into his static shots. His strongest visual trademark in Last Night in Soho is frame within a frame. Like his whip pans and tracking shots, These are all tools that help move the story. And the story in Last Night in Soho centers about a young girl who's so stuck in the past that she has little to no identity of her own. Most frame-within-a-frame shots are through mirrors. Wright typically has a lot of visual motifs in his films, like the swan in Hot Fuzz and the letter X in Skull Pilgrim. For Last Night in Soho, it is definitely mirrors. The transitions between Eloise's present and Sandy's past are often achieved through mirrors. In several scenes, Eloise sees Sandy's reflection in mirrors even when Sandy isn't physically present. Now, here are some stills to show you what I mean. In conclusion, Last Night in Soho is still an Edgar Wright film just like any other. It uses all of what we know at Edgar Wright trademarks to be, just differently. We all know that he is a genius in crafting visual storytelling to bring his point across. I'm just surprised that after the Cornell trilogy, Scott Pilgrim, and Baby Driver, he has a point to make about PTSD, identity, and the objectification of women's bodies. And for all those reasons, I'm so excited to see The Running Man come in the theaters this year and the evolution of his shot composition. Thanks for watching all the way through. If you like this video and want to see more of my face online, please consider donating to my Buy Me a Coffee. I am a film student who has to fund her own thesis to graduate, so please consider donating. I'd appreciate anything at all.